Did I report it to the White House? Of course I reported it to the White House. Did I report it to the FBI? Of course I reported it to the FBI. Did I report it to our counterterrorism unit? Of course I reported it, because I'm telling you there's a paper trail. Common sense. Because I'm assuming you could get a felony for making something up out of thin air like that. You can't just use United States resources to go after somebody in a plot that never existed that you did for clicks on YouTube.
The Macrons ordered my assassination. France ordered my assassination. That's what Candace Owens, the prominent conservative content creator, is claiming, and has claimed for about a week on Twitter. Now having her first show on this subject, why does she believe this? What does she think substantiates it? And what does it tell us about American politics and the French and U.S. responses to this? Let's just check it out. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
As you learn things, you become a target. You become a target to people that operate in the shadows. And that is, I think, what we are all learning in the wake of the last couple of months, especially. Now, going back to November 25th, I obviously tweeted exactly what I was informed. Okay, I'm going to read that tweet to you in its entirety. Urgent. 2 days ago, I was contacted by a high-ranking employee of the French government. After determining this person's position and proximity to the French couple, I have deemed the information that they gave me to be credible enough to share publicly in the event that something happens. In short, this person claims the Macrons have executed upon and paid for my assassination. Yes, you read that correctly. More specifically, that the green light was given to a small team in the National Gendarmerie Intervention Group. I am told there is one Israeli that is on the assassination squad and that plans were formalized. Again, this person provided concrete proof that they are well placed within the French government apparatus. Further to this point, this person claims that Charlie Kirk's assassin trained with the French Legion 13th Brigade with multi-state involvement. Journalist Xavier Poussard's life is also at risk. This is deadly serious. The head of state of France apparently wants us both dead and has authorized professional units to carry this out. I ask that every person retweet and share this. I do not know who in the American government can be trusted, since this source claims that our leaders are aware. But I have more specific information, which is definitively verifiable, should they care to reach out to me. And to the brave official in France who did this because they were so moved by the evil of Charlie's public execution to risk their own life, may God bless you truly. Let all be revealed. Now,
so just pay attention to the basic details here. First, she's claiming that a group within the National Gendarmerie Intervention Group, that's a French special forces unit, was ordered to do the hit on Candace Owens. That also, the person that gave her this source, a high-ranking official in France's government, also claimed that Charlie Kirk's assassination trained with the French Legion 13th Brigade, and also have threatened Xavier Poussard's life. He was the French journalist that revealed a lot of the same scathing things about Brigitte Macron as Candace did. And, subsequent messages from Candace has said she's reached out to authorities in the United States, not only the FBI, but also in other organizations and other institutions within the United States to convey this, even going so far as to say she'll give the names and information of the people that she believes was responsible. Just hold that in your mind. It's going to be important in analyzing this later.
I got even more specific. Right? I said there was a paper trail that Macron allegedly paid $1.5 million. And I am saying allegedly because until I can physically see with my own eyes inside of these accounts and verify the transfer of that payment, it's of course alleged. The amount is alleged. 2 assassins were hired, one Israeli, one French-Canadian woman, okay, a man and a woman. And I also said that the money ran through the elite gentleman Club des Cent. Again, I was very specific. And I asserted that the French Foreign Legion, which was a legion and a group that I had never heard about prior to this notification, were involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. Okay, I don't follow military stuff. So me even mentioning specific gendarmerie, you have to assume that I got this information from somebody. Now, if you are, in fact, currently at this moment, the first man of France, that would be Brigitte Macron, and you are currently suing a podcaster in America named Candace Owens for defamation, for telling the truth, right? And the story that you are trying to sell to the public is that you were really deep down in your heart, you really believe that you are a woman and Candace is just crazy and desperate for clicks and willing to defame you for money. Then Candace Owens publicly proclaiming and accusing you of something directly implicated in her assassination, a claim which has gone viral. When I say viral, I mean just the tweet alone had over 100,000 retweets and 45 million impressions on X alone, okay?
Yeah, I think her original tweet had something like, I don't know, like 50 million views or something. It was just insane, just astronomical in Twitter. And whatever you think about these claims, whether they're right or wrong, this does seem to be a motive on the Macron side to want to do this to Candace Owens. She's accused Brigitte Macron of being a man, being born a man, secretly, and having that covered up. And so much so has this incensed the French that they've sued her for defamation. And by the way, that's the interesting part of that story to me. The precedent that this sets, that a foreign head of state that's ostensibly a U.S. ally is suing an American content creator for things critical about them, possibly untrue. But what kind of precedent is that going to stand for in a world where a new independent media is rising and rising, displacing the old legacy media? Are we just going to get lawsuit after lawsuit from foreign heads of state? But either way, there's a motive here, so much so that Macron, when visiting the White House, somehow got the Trump administration to call Candace Owens and tell her, hey, you got to stop talking about Brigitte Macron being a man. I mean, it's just so comical. But when you think of this, the motive exists even if you think these claims are wrong. She's citing that they came from a high-ranking French official, and there is a motive, whether or not you think it happened.
Okay. This would be your unique opportunity as the French first man to prove your case about Candace to the public, right? In the court of public opinion. This would be your time to slam dunk. Remember, the French couple has been so psychotically obsessed with trying to paint me as conflicted in my reporting that they even hired a private investigator to try to see if I was colluding with other state actors. You know, they kind of gloriously insinuated that I might be working with Russia. They paid for that. They paid for that investigation. So using that logic, wouldn't this be the opportunity, if you're the French couple, to come out and to prove your point, to make a stunning and a swift statement, right? We are shocked by the accusation. Of course, never in a million years. Oh, we told you guys, this is just for clicks. It's for money. This is beyond anything we've ever heard. I hope Candace gets well soon. That would be what I would say you should do if I'm advising you from a PR statement.
Okay, so I want to address this because that actually has happened from two segments of the French government to some extent. So Élysée Palace, that is where the French presidential couple resides. It's that complex. It's like saying the White House, but the French version, Élysée Palace. Here's what they said about Candace's claim. These accusations are not only unfounded but dangerous, designed to incite harm without any factual basis. In addition, the French Foreign Ministry has denied any involvement in that foreign assassination claim or ties to Kirk's death, calling it an absurd fabrication. So I don't think that this has been widely printed in U.S. publications, but it has been printed in some, including in this one that I'm about to bring up here. This story talks about this, and this came from December 1st. So this was earlier today. Candace was probably not made privy to this, is my explanation. But this section in its whole talks about this and the French response. So they have actually responded to it. Maybe Candace wasn't aware of that, but they have responded to it and denied it pretty swiftly from what I've seen.
Standpoint, right? In American basketball terms, this is like a flagrant foul, and you now get some free throws, right? If you're the French couple, you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees, investigative fees, and PR fees in a country on the other side of the Atlantic, trying desperately to paint me as a lunatic, and I give you the opportunity to spike the ball to prove that I'm a lunatic, and you don't do it? No, they didn't do it, did they? If you're paying attention, they did not do it. The Of course, they send out the people on Twitter who get to come out and say, oh, I think she's crazy. I think she's making it up. They do this. We are always doing this every week.
He's right about that. They do that every week. They say she's lost her mind. They said this about her Charlie Kirk assertion that Charlie Kirk did not maintain rigid adherence to the Zionist mantra right before he died, and in fact said to the contrary. He had changed his mind on that, while people in the text group exposed to Charlie Kirk's last words, some of them anyway, saying, I have no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause, continued to lie about them after seeing that, and Candace Owens completely exposed them. And they still maintain the same line in this whole story. I don't know the truth yet. I don't have full corroboration of her claims. I might never get that. But what I do know is that the U.S. government hasn't responded whatsoever to her claims at all yet, despite the fact she said she shared that information. The U.S. feds have been pretty mum about this whole thing. And she is saying she thinks it can be corroborated. Maybe it will. And so much so that even Brandon Tatum, who doesn't agree with Candace at all on issues like Israel, has come out and said, I think she's trustworthy. I think she's telling the truth, whether or not it's true, that this is the source that came to her and she provided the info. So we'll see what happens, but they're maintaining the same line that she's just lost her mind. She's just crazy. Well, last time she exposed them after saying that when it came to Charlie Kirk and his turn away from the pro-Israel cause in his own words.
Oh, Trump never called her about Brigitte Macron. She's making that up for attention. Oh, she's lying. Charlie Kirk never changed his mind about Israel. She's making that up for attention. This is what we do every week, right? We're hamsters on a wheel. And so we're back to that again, right? People saying that I made it up. But what did the French couple do? That's what matters. It's now been a full week since I made that announcement. And here is the official response issued by the Élysée Palace.
Oh.
Nothing.
Okay, I thought she was actually going to play the response, but it's not true. They did respond. I just read the quote. Again, Candace might not have been privy to that, at least in that one article I saw. That article only came out today. She might not have seen it, but Élysée Palace did respond to this, calling it a unfounded but dangerous accusations and designed to incite harm without any factual basis. So it's not crickets, but in a way, if that only just came out today, I think it did, Candace might not have been aware of that, but they have denied it today.
Nothing. I want you to bear in mind that this was front page global news from the United States to Russia. And I publicly challenged the Candace is making everything up crowd to prove it. Press the White House for a response, right? The White House the ball's very firmly in their court. And a week later, this is the official White House response.
As far as I can tell, that is the truth completely. There hasn't been any response I've seen reported from the White House on this or any segment of the federal government on this, either corroborating or refuting her claims about this. So we'll have to pay attention to that. This is still a developing story, but she's totally right about that one. There hasn't been a federal response from what I've seen.
So what are we to make of that, you guys? Did I report it to the White House? Of course I reported it to the White House. Did I report it to the FBI? Of course I reported it to the FBI. Did I report it to our counterterrorism unit? Of course I reported it because I'm telling you there's a paper trail. Common sense. You think I'm just doing that because I'm assuming you could get a felony for making something up out of thin air like that. You can't just use United States resources to go after somebody in a plot that never existed that you did for clicks on YouTube. So what's the issue here? Why is no one coming out and telling you that that's completely baseless, especially the Charlie Kirk assassination? The whole world is invested in that assassination. Wouldn't you want to shut that down? The idea that it was a multinationally planned event? And by the way, is that on its face even plausible? Multiple agencies and multiple countries involved from Egypt to Israel. People are saying that's totally crazy. No, it's the lone shooter who had never been on campus, who climbed the roofs like Spider-Man, happened to know where Charlie would be sitting and hit that shot in 4 seconds. Is it plausible that that's not the truth? Of course it's plausible. Anyone who knows anything about the French government probably knows that they have an appetite for cruelty and sexual deviancy. Anybody who has made it through the first couple of episodes of Becoming Brigitte knows that the French government has an appetite for cruelty and sexual deviancy.
All right, so in terms of the FBI shutting the door on foreign involvement, that kind of has happened, at least implicitly, because if you remember, Joe Kent, one of the chief subordinates of Tulsi Gabbard, actually came to the FBI, came to Kash Patel and said, hey, look at all these leads that we've dug up to investigate possible foreign influence in Charlie Kirk's assassination. Will you have a look at them? No. Door slammed shut on Joe Kent by Kash Patel. This is widely reported from a few weeks ago. They didn't want to even entertain the notion that there were alternative explanations because they had already dug into and stuck their heels in this narrative. And yeah, I'm sorry, I think the most plausible thing for Americans to believe is that the FBI narrative is never 100% true. It's never 100% clear. What proves that more than January 6th and COINTELPRO and Waco and Ruby Ridge and all of those, designed things to botch investigations, to just sweep the truth under the rug, protect themselves, protect the Uniparty, and protect foreign actors, especially Israel, by the way.
Okay. LOL. The city of romance, really? Romance with who? Exactly. That's one of the broader points of the Becoming Brigitte series. And so I'd like to thank Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, for being one of the first people to stick out his neck immediately and to assert what the entire world already knows about France. Here's what he said. He said, after reviewing everything Charlie Kirk has ever said about Macron's France, I find Candace's information about French involvement in his death entirely plausible. Charlie even called for 300% tariffs on France until the charges against me were dropped. And I also would like to shout out Freddie Ponton, who wrote this article reminding people, and when I say reminding, I mean teaching people, if you're me, because I didn't know this, that exactly this satellite of countries, France, Israel, the French Legion, the United States, Egypt, were quite literally involved in exactly this sort of operation, which further reaching global implications, involving the Safari Club in Egypt. Now, if you haven't heard of that, this was the article that he wrote, Passed as Prologue, Safari Club illuminates Candace Owens' allegations. I had never heard of this. I really hadn't, okay? Because I feel like I'm Alice in Wonderland. A few years ago, I kind of believed everything the government said. I thought there were good guys. And after the Charlie Kirk assassination, I'm going, oh, wait, no, nobody is a good guy. These are like gangs that are running the world, obviously, gangs that have gone mainstream.
Yeah, that's been the deep state. I mean, that's been the basis of CIA propaganda, inciting regime change operations and psychological operations. That's for sure. And I want to refresh, some of my audience might not know who Pavel Durov is, but he was the founder of Telegram, the social media platform, and he got in trouble with the French authorities. They arrested him ostensibly because they said that he was involved in trafficking illicit materials, including child porn and also illicit drugs. But what they're saying is that no, people actually just did that on his platform, and they want to pin it on him and for him to go down on that. What they really wanted to do was attack his right to have a social media platform where things that were said were not conducive to the French authorities, particularly painting the Macrons in a bad light and blaming the nefarious crimes of individuals just for using his platform to communicate. Thankfully, he's free for now. And, as far as I can tell, he's a champion of free speech, but I just want to inform you of that if you weren't aware.
And democracy and the idea of a republic is just an illusion. Well, anyways, in that article, I'm only going to read a paragraph from it, but he said, when Candace Owens claimed on X that a high-ranking French government insider warned her of an imminent plot to have her assassinated, alleging that President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte had authorized and financed the operation, assigning it to a small national gendarmerie intervention group team that included an Israeli operative. She also suggested that Charlie Kirk's assassin trained with the French Legion with multi-state involvement. The claim sounded like it belonged to the realm of conspiracy thrillers, and yet, as the allegation ricocheted across social media, something unusual happened. People did not instinctively laugh it off. Some dismissed it, yes, but many hesitated, paused, or quietly admitted that given the right circumstances, given the right network of covert actors, such a plot didn't feel entirely impossible. That hesitation doesn't come from trust in Owens. It comes from history. And sure enough, and I'm just pulling up the Wikipedia page here, you should go read that article in its entirety. But the Safari Club, man, a covert alliance of intelligence services formed in 1976 that ran operations around Africa when the United States Congress had limited the power of the CIA after years of abuses. They decided to kind of go overseas and handle business. They had members in pre-revolutionary Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and France. Israel's involved, Rhodesia, South Africa. I mean, it tells you there that the processes then resulted in the 1979 Egypt-Israel.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to see how this develops. The video got cut off on the Safari Club area there. I'm not sure why that happened, but this is a developing story. We don't have all the answers. As I talked about before, some of the claims, relied on passing information to federal authorities, including the White House and the FBI and the Counterterrorism Office, as Candace Owens said, and we haven't gotten a response from the feds. So I can't wait to see a response from the feds. I would like to see that as quickly as possible, and it is actually interesting what they might say, because if they deny this completely and say there's nothing there, just like the French authorities are, I don't put it past Candace Owens to produce actual receipts and names and try to nail this down and have, sleuths on the internet search and find out what they can do. Because when the FBI doesn't do that, when they have a preconceived narrative that they're protecting and they don't want to do, the future of investigations is through independent media and individual investigations. It's not through deep state organizations that no one trusts anymore, and for good reason. The FBI has had such a murderous history that who can trust them? Very few people do, if at all, especially when they believe, like, hey, you were guilty of some of the most nefarious behavior on earth. And not enough people think that, but it's enough for basically all dissidents to call for the abolishment of the FBI and its current leadership, which is just so preposterously absurd and corrupt that not only are they covering up the Epstein case, but they're certainly not giving us the full story of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Whoever you think is culpable for that murder, or group of people you think is involved in that murder. That's just the truth. And what we have here is an attempt to marginalize Candace Owens, just like there was done when she criticized Israel, when she dared to say that genocide is wrong no matter who did it, when she dared to say that no, Charlie Kirk actually was changing his mind on Israel and being beholden to Israel and being so supportive of the pro-Israel cause. So much so that you guys lied about him to try to pull him and use his death to further your own political agenda. And Candace Owens turned out to be right. Well, she might be turning out to be right here. We don't have full information or corroboration, but I'm really interested to see what the United States says about it, to see how to handle this and how to cover it going forward. Now, also, we have this tweet from Candace recently when she gave more information about French legionnaires she said that trained first in California and then in Camp Ripley, Minnesota. She said Camp Riley there. But what has happened with a lot of the people on the internet covering this is they've taken this and, disposed of minutia when she made an obvious mistake, a one-letter misspelling of Camp Ripley by saying Camp Riley. So you had a lot of publications and people pushing back saying, hey, there's no such thing as a Camp Riley, Minnesota. Even though that's like an obvious mistake if you're aware of bases in Minnesota. So you have this as kind of a limited hangout. We're going to say that Candace Owens is totally wrong and preposterous. Nothing she says is true because she misspelled Camp Ripley. Instead of actually taking on the substance and seeing like, hey, maybe let's look into these Legionnaire activities. And I'm not sure they were arbitrary. I'm not sure they had anything to do with this. But you can see how this is being handled. It's a psyop to not address the substance and only a one-letter misspelling. So we're going to have to see what we get from this case, what we learn about it. It's going to depend a lot on potential Fed responses. The feds, I don't think, are keen on Candace Owens, especially her propensity to expose the U.S.-Israeli relationship. But if they lie about Candace Owens providing this information, detailed information with names, that could be a serious thing that, encourages Candace Owens to reveal the information to the public. And that's what I'm here for. I want to see that. I want to learn more about this. I don't think the story's dead, and we haven't heard the end of it yet. But what do you guys think? Do you think this is legitimate? Do you think the U.S. government will respond to this? If so, how do you think the U.S. government will respond to it? What questions might those responses raise, and how will Candace deal with it? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to Candace Owens, and if you like this video and my content, please consider becoming a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button below. And if you do that, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. You'll be able to see my members only videos right away. And also, if you want a free copy of my first book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. It'll shoot you off to a website. All you do is plug in your email. I'll send you that book in PDF form free of charge. No obligation, just because you watched my show, and I appreciate it. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.